Henry St. John Carruthers was something of an enigma. Where he lived, I have no idea, except that it was somewhere north of Oxford Street. But we were both members of the Junior Strand, which, as all the world knows, is not a club frequented largely by the clergy or the more respectable likes of the legal profession.
Carruthers in fiction have tended to be admirable, upstanding figures that you can look up to and rely on.
"By Jove, Carruthers," said Davis eagerly, "we must get out on this next tide." By Jove, Carruthers, in which Miles Jupp embarks on a spirited quest for the real Carruthers. By Jove.
Nelson, Wellington, Churchill, James Bond, Simon Templar, Gordon Brown, British heroes all. Yet there is another hero whose name first crept into my consciousness when I was but a sapling, and a sickly one at that. When I was a lad at the tail end of the 1980s, I went away to a preparatory school which, though largely charming, had something of a Spartan feel to it. If you became ill, for instance, you were confined to a room called the sick bay, where, regardless of the ailment that had led to your incarceration, you were ordered to lie in bed all day and consume vast obligatory jugs of barley water to keep your temperature down. The only thing to do, therefore, was to read. The sick bay was blessed with a small library of books that had probably been unchanged since the 1950s, boys' own annuals and books about prisoner of war escapees. And it was there, reading in the sick bay as I lay recovering from the combined effects of a hockey stick to the face and 37 litres of barley water violently sloshing around in my bladder, that I first came across a name that has intrigued and obsessed me ever since. A name that, to me, sums up the kind of square-jawed, straight-backed, stiff-upper-lip chap who foils the Hun in the North Sea, beats the Bosch, fends off savage natives in Africa, and who keeps chiropractors in business. A name often preceded by an enthusiastic cry to the father of the Roman gods. Today I'm asking, by Jove, who are you, Carruthers? I've come to the Ripping Yarns bookshop in Highgate, a shop which specialises in adventure stories, to prize apart the dusty covers of some boys' shockers, to peer into a past where men were men, foreigners were untrustworthy, and natives needed to be ruthlessly subjugated. And if this row of books here, with titles like Grit Will Tell, The Enemy in the Midst, or Dare to Do Right, wasn't enough, then this shop certainly... it smells like the right place to begin my search for a man or men whose name has become a legend. Celia Mitchell is the owner of Ripping Yarns. Celia, have I come to the right place to find out about Carruthers?
Well, I'm quite sure that in these books here there must be many Carruthers, because it's the sort of name, and they only ever called people by their surnames. So the early captains, they're great. Captain is where William was first produced. See, look at the cover. The cricket, people with cricket bats and things like that.
These lovely heavy things.
Yeah, they're
well, aren't they?
And gilt edges to the books. They did a lot of really good annuals like that at that period. And there's a good Blackies Boys annual here. Yes, here we are. Here we are, authors. Percy Longhurst, he did a lot. T.C. Bridges did lots. Walter Rhodes did school stories. And
this is a lovely title. Barclay and the Soup.
Oh, yes.
That must be a school story, isn't it?
Yeah, but a lot of them will be. The Wrestling Raja. There's a lot of wonderful empire-building stuff. My first and last bear. Shot, I suppose.
What does the name Carruthers conjure up to you?
Well, I suppose it conjures up an empire-building boy, a young man, or somebody who went from his school out to fight for our cause in the empire, possibly in India, or Sudan, or in some war, the Boer War or something. It just conjures up a very strong man with great moral principles and a racist attitude.
Carruthers in fiction have tended to be admirable, upstanding figures that you can look up to and rely on.
Cultural historian Louis Bath.
The name Carruthers occurs frequently in Victorian theatre. Little forgotten repertory plays, usually sentimental rubbish plays that haven't stood the test of time very well. Things like Ensnared and The Parvenu. And they've all got characters called Carruthers in it. But my favourite is from 1910. It's a sentimental little play called The Littlest Girl, in which a father called Carruthers is reunited with his young daughter, having been estranged from her by the wicked, wayward mother. and tries to dissuade his young daughter from a life on the stage because the wicked, deceitful, wayward mother had been a stage performer, and he thought, well, the girl's going to turn out the same way. I mean, obviously it's all right in the end, and he's reconciled to the idea of his daughter being a hoofer. The Stage in 1910, the newspaper that is, thought it was pretty cloying and awful then. Their exact words were, "The piece is pretty to a point, but it is also too sentimental. This latter fact, together with the lack of substance in the piece, making it tedious in spite of its brevity." That's one of the great bad reviews of all time.
That would be, yes, they'd have cut that one out and carried it around. What do you imagine might be the enduring appeal of the name Carruthers?
Well, I think it's partly because it sounds so nice. It's such a pleasing word to say.
It's very satisfying, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? And I think it shares those characteristics with all of the great comedy names, like Blenkinsop, and names like that. Almost onomatopoeic names.
As if there's sort of a snivelling noise in a dormitory.
Yes.
Blenkinsop sounds like.
Yes. Whereas a Carruthers is a brisk name. It implies a sort of brisk character, a firm character, someone good in a crisis, good in a corner.
Dormitory prefect.
Yes, possibly even a head boy.
Oh, I say, gosh. The satisfaction of it is also, do you think, it has a sort of nickname sound to it, I suppose?
Well, yes, I mean, if you think about the cricket, the Test match special mob, the Aggers, Johners, Blowers, Fredders and all that, Carruthers has got the ers built into it, and it's a proper name. It's got that chummy ending built into it.
So, in a way, the enduring appeal of the name Carruthers might just simply be nothing to do with anything that any Carruthers, real or imagined, have achieved, but simply the pleasure in which people have in enunciating them.
Yeah, and also I think there's some kind of thing going on with the letter C, and specifically the hard C, because if you think of Molesworth, he's at St Custard's. If you think of Private Eye, they joke about St Cakes. And then there was the famous Cardew Robinson, who made a life on the variety stage as Cardew the Cad of St Cuthbert's. And so you've got Carstairs, Carruthers, Cardew. You know, it's almost like you're reading a register down.
If Carruthers is the name of a bona fide hero, then we can thank perhaps one book more than any other. I'm holding in my hands a copy of The Riddle of the Sands, written by Erskine Childers, which was published in 1903. Its hero, Carruthers, a minor Foreign Office official, is lured on a sailing holiday by his friend David and finds himself adrift in the North Sea in the shallow waters near the Frisian Islands, where German boats are lurking. In the process, he prevents a full-blown German invasion.
Yacht Dulcibella, Flensburg, Schleswig-Holstein, 21st September. Dear Carruthers, I dare say you'll be surprised at hearing from me, as it's ages since we met. It's more than likely, too, that what I'm going to suggest won't suit you, so I merely write on the off chance to ask if you would care to come out here and join me in a little yachting, and, I hope, duck shooting. This part of the Baltic, the Schleswig Fjords, is a splendid cruising ground, A1 scenery, and there ought to be plenty of duck about soon, if it gets cold enough. Bring your gun and a good lot of number 4s, and would you mind calling at Lancaster's and asking for mine and bringing it too? Bring some oilskins. Better get the 11 shillings sort, jacket and trousers, not the yachting brand. And if you paint, bring your gear. I know you speak German like a native, and that will be a great help. Forgive this hail of directions, but I've a sort of feeling that I'm in luck, and that you'll come. Anyway, I hope you and the F.O. both flourish. Goodbye. Yours ever, Arthur H. Davis. Oh, would you mind bringing me out a prismatic compass and a pound of Raven mixture?
I fully intended to travel to the Frisian Islands myself to follow this lead, but for some reason an inexperienced sailor hiring a 40-foot schooner and heading across the North Sea seemed to require me filling in an unbelievable amount of insurance forms and health and safety paperwork. Instead, I've travelled to Bristol, although the taxi driver said Bath would have been as good, to visit the Avon Valley Adventure and Wildlife Park, to clamber into a rowing boat with Sam Llewellyn, the author of a sequel to The Riddle of the Sands, called The Shadow in the Sands. How am I doing?
You're doing extraordinarily well, a bit more welly.
Oh, right,
if you
sorry.
wouldn't mind, guys, and then we'll stop going around in circles like that.
You can't go too fast, obviously, because it's not the largest of water. You're a very, very experienced seagoer.
Not as much as the real Davis, the great Davis in The Riddle of the Sands, my great hero. The Carruthers in The Riddle of the Sands, I think, is actually a rather brilliant device for the author to climb in. I mean, it's no fluke that Carruthers' name ends in ERS and Erskine Childers' name ends in ERS. He turns up on the boat with several large, hard suitcases. The boat itself is very small, very squalid, and there's no room for anything but a sort of collapsible kit bag. And he's got proper Carruthers clothes, sporting, sailing white flannels, charming blazer. He's expecting plenty of sort of promenade deck action, sitting in a deck chair, sipping a tall, cool glass. What he actually gets is cocoa and mud.
But what struck me when I first read it was about the sheer sort of level of detail in it. But Childers himself was a keen sailor, so there's a lot of stuff that would be, say, in Childers' own logbooks that made it straight in verbatim.
Yeah, absolutely. What happens with boats is that people fall in love with them. So Davis, who's the protagonist and is part of Childers, falls in love with his own absolutely horrible, mud-soaked, clanking, leaking, reeking wreck of an object. And Carruthers, dear old Carruthers, turns up and is absolutely appalled by what he finds, but in the end sort of falls in love with the whole thing himself. There are these two bits of Childers. I mean, Childers, the author, a most amazing man. First of all, he was a terrific hero in the Boer War, and he was very patriotic Britain, but at the same time completely understood the Boer point of view. That was his problem. He always understood everybody's point of view. Then he wrote The Riddle of the Sands, which is the first ever thriller. It's the first ever techno thriller too, except where Craig Thomas does it with the innards of jets, Childers does it with the bits and pieces of sailing boats. But it's also one of a great family of books which warns that in the years 1900 to 1910, there was a good chance that the German Navy was going to come swarming across the North Sea and invade Britain. And then finally, he became an Irish Republican. He just thought that the whole Irish situation was grotesquely unfair. He became a heavy-duty Irish Republican and was executed in the 1920s.
We're now rowing rather quickly towards Little Island in this boated lake. It's as if we are reliving the excellent passage when they row through the fog and they're in search of this those offices where they claim that they're looking after a bullion wreck and things like that.
Very true. We are coming up this island, and I suspect that behind it there are enormous numbers of barges massed, ready to be filled with troops and towed with tugs to invade Bristol.
It was 25 minutes to 11 when we noiselessly pushed off. "Let her drift," whispered Davis. "The ebb will carry her past the pier." We slid by the Dulcibella, and she disappeared. Then we sat without speech or movement for about 5 minutes, while the gurgle of tide-through piles approached and passed. The dinghy appeared to be motionless, just as a balloon in the clouds may appear to its occupants to be motionless, though urged by a current of air. In reality, we were driving out of the reef gat into the Zeegat. The dinghy swayed to a light swell. "Now pull," said Davis under his breath. "Keep it long and steady. Above all, steady. Both arms with equal force."
What happened was that in those days we had, the arms race was on and everybody was building dreadnoughts, and dreadnoughts are absolutely fine as long as you've got about 50 feet of water under you, minimum. Unlike us here now, we've got about 8 inches, I think, and very nice too. But the inshore fleets, things like torpedo boats, and we live on an island which is actually surrounded by quite shallow water, except in its far west and far northern departments. So it seems absolutely insane not to have a shallow water fleet, and this is what Childers was trying to persuade everybody to do when he wrote the book. And I thought, it's an interesting idea, this Carruthersishness, and when I wrote a continuation of the book, I thought actually the one thing that had dated a bit was the by Jove Carruthers aspect of the whole thing. Well, I didn't want to tamper with the immortal memory of Davis and Carruthers anyway, because I think they're two truly wonderful characters of their time. But I gave it a new hero who was a bit more, considerably more working class. He was a fisherman, in fact, and the fisherman was a paid hand in the employ of dark and sinister forces in the Edwardian era. and they went and researched the whole thing. So you re-meet Davis and Carruthers, and it turns out that actually Carruthers has got a much harder nose and is much wilier cove than he seemed to be.
Do you feel that Childers started the genre? Oh, look! Bloody hell, that is a swan. Oh, dear.
It's all right, I'm going to harpoon this swan.
Close.
Everybody...
That is, I've never heard a swan hiss. Please. Oh, let's go. I can only say Sam doesn't look remotely terrified, whereas I am beside myself.
Tame this one.
Oh, God, he's trying to bite the oar.
He's trying to...
Oh, this is a health and safety nightmare. We're not even wearing pet-proof clothing. Oh, it's like, look, they can break your arm, can't they?
I think this is...
Shall I hit it?
This is very much the Carruthers response.
Is it?
The sudden, absolutely
fear.
Brilliant rowing in what I can only describe as a grade A emergency.
The attack of the swan made me realise that the Carruthers of the Riddle of the Sands was perhaps braver than his languid Foreign Office exterior might suggest. So where did Carruthers come from? What was his stock? I asked Bruce Jury, a genealogist, to look at the origins of the Carruthers family.
The Carruthers are very well documented, right back to the 13th and 14th century. Everyone thinks it's archetypally English, when in fact it's a Scottish surname, very old Scottish surname. It comes from the lands of Carruthers, which are in Dumfriesshire. Down there, though, they pronounce it Cridders, just to confuse everyone.
I've been researching a lot of the fictional examples of Carrutherses, but a lot of the actual real members of the Carruthers family have led lives as interesting, if not more so, than some of the ones that we've read about in literature.
That's absolutely right. If you're looking for a real-life hero, you can look no further than Alexander Douglas Mitchell Carruthers, and there's a really Scottish combination of names, who was alive in he only died in 1962, actually, but he was a famous explorer, naturalist, map maker. He went out on the behalf of the Royal Geographical Society and the British Museum and went up the Congo and brought home loads of specimens and drew maps and so on. That's my view of a Carruthers.
Now, as we've heard, abundant heroes have blossomed on the Carruthers family tree. But not all of its branches are green, healthy and limber. Some are black and slimy, rotten to the core. That's why, listeners, I'm wearing a rubber cycling cape and why, clamped between my thighs, there's an absolute bone shaker of a bicycle. Its stabilisers engaged, its brakes tightened, and its bell... Well, you can hear that for yourself. Actually, it's a pretty nifty piece of kit. It's a 21-gear City Mountain hybrid that belongs to my wife and which, frankly, scares me witless. I'm setting off on the trail of Bob Carruthers, villain in the Sherlock Holmes story, The Adventure of the Solitary Cyclist. Whoa!
And now, Mr. Holmes, I come at last to the special thing which has caused me to ask your advice today. You must know that every Saturday forenoon I ride on my bicycle to Farnham Station in order to get the 12:22 to town. The road from Chiltern Grange is a lonely one, and at one spot it is particularly so, for it lies for over a mile between Charlington Heath upon one side and the woods which lie round Charlington Hall upon the other. You could not find the more lonely tract of road anywhere, and it is quite rare to meet so much as a cart or a peasant until you reach the high road near Crooksbury Hill. 2 weeks ago I was passing this place when I chanced to look back over my shoulder, and about 200 yards behind me I saw a man, also on a bicycle. He seemed to be a middle-aged man with a short, dark beard. I looked back before I reached Farnham, but the man was gone.
It's harder than you think to cycle to Chelmsford. Regardless of where your journey started, ask anyone who knows about these things. But Chelmsford is where we've come to sit in the garden of Roger Johnson of the Sherlock Holmes Society, an expert on all things Holmesian, and on the Carruthers who let the family name down by turning his crime.
A young lady arrives at 221B Baker Street to ask for Holmes's help because she is faced with a rather curious situation. Some while back, two gentlemen arrived from South Africa saying that they had known her uncle, her estranged uncle, Rafe, and Rafe had died in poverty and had told them to look after young Violet. Carruthers, the older and nicer of the two men, offers her a job as live-in governess at his house in Surrey. And she accepts, and things go reasonably well, until a little while later the other gentleman, Woodley, comes to the house and starts forcing his attentions on her, and is rebuffed in no uncertain terms by her and by Mr. Carruthers, who frankly floors him. Every weekend, Violet cycles from the house to the nearest station along the country roads to get a train up to London to see her mother. And she sees behind her another cyclist keeping pace with her and apparently not wishing to be recognised. Man bending low over the handlebars of his bicycle, and all she can distinguish of him is his black beard. Ooh, could it possibly be a disguise? So who is it? Is it Jack Woodley? Is it Bob Carruthers? Is it Violet's fiancé, who is an electrician in the Midlands? Well, she says she knows it wouldn't be him. To cut a longish story short, it turns out that Carruthers and Woodley had indeed met Rafe Smith in South Africa, but the old man was not yet dead. He was dying, but he was also rich, and he had not made a will because he couldn't read or write. They knew that Violet was his nearest living relation, and that consequently his wealth would go to her. So they had actually played cards to decide which of them should marry Violet Smith and get control of her fortune. And it was Woodley, the odious Mr. Woodley, who won. And meanwhile, Carruthers, who was really pretty decent at heart, he had actually fallen in love with Violet himself and wanted her to marry him, and she couldn't, and she wouldn't. And the climax of the story, Holmes and Watson get down to Surrey just in time to find that Violet has been waylaid and kidnapped and forcibly married in the grounds of Charlington Hall by Williamson, the ex-priest. Holmes and Watson meet up with Bob Carruthers. The little party get there just in time to be told, "Too late, she's my wife." "No," says Carruthers, drawing his pistol, "she's your widow."
Are there any other mentions of Carruthers in the Holmes story?
There's just one that I can remember. At the beginning of the story called Wisteria Lodge, Holmes is very keen to take up the case that's presented to him by Mr. John Scott Eccles, because, as he tells Watson, "You know how bored I've been since we locked up Colonel Carruthers." That's all we know about him. He was a colonel, they locked him up.
Are there any Carruthers clan members in the Sherlock Holmes Society?
Do you know, I don't think there are. The only Carruthers I've known personally was a plumber.
But what about the other Carruthers, the ones referred to in, as it were, inverted commas? How did his name become synonymous with boys' adventures? Historian Owen Dudley Edwards.
Biggles in the Jungle was published in 1942 and probably was originating in a short story of Biggles in the interwar years, which got too big, and so despite the fact that Biggles was appearing in World War II romances, quite good ones, Johns produced Biggles in the Jungle, set in Honduras, in which Biggles is simply on holiday in his own plane with his friends Algy and Ginger, and they run out of fuel near Belize. Johns's choice of the name here, I think, is suggestive, that his audience his youthful audience and his young adult audience, and he certainly had that, would tend to think of Carruthers as the bulldog Drummond, when Carruthers laughed, the stern, silent chap, whereas what Johns is actually anxious to do here is to suggest that Carruthers is a Foreign Office, a type capable of, within limits, of doing a tolerable bureaucratic job, but essentially an inferior specimen to Biggles and the others, and that one needs Biggles and the others when things are in difficulties. And even then, the civil servant wondering about finance and jibbing at things that don't seem to be easily manageable in terms of what his superiors want, and not knowing enough about his subordinates to realise where they are in fact treacherous. All of that is operating as a mild, brief, sidelined satire. So Carruthers, from that point of view, is turned into a figure for satire, and as I say, I think the name is quite deliberately chosen. We're intended in that sense to see Carruthers as a hollow figure. No, I don't think we've seen the last of Carruthers. So admirable a figure, with such endless possibilities for hilarious satire, for such delightful laughter, intentionally or unintentionally. Every national literature needs its Carruthers.
From the jungle to the North Sea to the Goon Show, you've been on quite a journey, Carruthers. And I have too. I don't buy the theory that it's just how your name sounds that makes you a great British hero. It's not even the squareness of your jaw or the fact that you crop up in the most unlikely places to serve your country. No, what makes you special, Carruthers, is the cut of your jib. You'd have no truck with swine flu. Credit crunches wouldn't faze you. We could do with a few more like you today. By Jove, Carruthers, I salute you.